What is up, everybody? This is Adam. Welcome back to Fouled Out. This episode is our preview of the AFC East division for the upcoming NFL season. Full disclosure, this podcast was pre-recorded and recorded before the Patriots traded Matthew Judon to the Falcons for a third-round pick. In this episode, you're going to hear my analysis of the Patriot season and my predictions for them. Just a warning, it's not overly optimistic already before the Judon trade. So that trade doesn't really change how I feel about their upcoming season. But I thought the trade was absolutely necessary. I've actually been calling for Matthew Judon to be traded for weeks, ever since he blew up at Gerard Mayo at practice. In this podcast, we talked about how this is a true blue rebuild for the Patriots. And it's not only an on-field rebuild, but it's an off-field rebuild where they're going to have to reestablish their culture and their identity, both as a football team and as an organization in the post-Bill Belichick era. And I think when you have someone like Matthew Judon, who's been a leader on this team in the post-Brady era, acting like a child and holding out and getting all pissed off about contract situations, that it can be negative for a lot of the younger players who are trying to develop and the culture that Gerard Mayo and his staff are trying to establish. So I thought it was necessary. Also, really nice by Elliott Wolf to go and get a third-round pick for a pass rusher who's 32 years old, coming off a major injury. And honestly, as good as Judon's been in New England, a lot of his production comes in the first half of the season, and then he tends to drop off as the season goes on. So I don't mind losing him at all. I know there's a lot of Patriot fans out there who are saying, oh man, he was my favorite player on the Patriots and we'll really appreciate all your time here. But honestly, if you look at it, they've accomplished nothing with him on the roster. So, maybe it's just me, but my favorite Patriots of all time, my favorite Red Sox of all time are the guys who won championships, won playoff games, and had big moments for the teams, not someone like Judon who was hyper productive on a shitty team that only won, 4 to 7 games a season. So I don't mind losing him. And I actually think it was a really smart trade to get a third round pick. Like I did not think they were going to get that kind of value for him with how he's been acting. And very ironically, he's now been traded to the Falcons, and the Falcons are also not giving him a new deal. So it sounds like he's going to play on his $6.5 million contract this season anyway, and then go into free agency and see what kind of contract he can get as a 33-year-old pass rusher. That said, you won't hear about the Judon trade in this podcast, but it's really not going to change our expectations of what the Patriots are going to accomplish this season. May change some expectations for the Falcons when we preview the NFC South, a podcast that's going to come out Tuesday the 20th. And then next Friday, we'll be back with our AFC South podcast. So just a reminder that Fouled Out is going to be dropping 2 episodes a week, Tuesdays and Fridays every week until we've previewed all 8 NFL divisions leading up to the 2024 NFL season. And then we'll drop our week 1 podcast where we make the rest of our wildcard picks, award picks, all that good stuff. Also, you can reach out to us, fouledoutsports@gmail.com. Really appreciate you guys listening, and we would love to hear from you. As part of our divisional preview podcast, Matt and I are giving bold predictions and hot takes for every division in the NFL, and we would love to hear yours. Send those to fouledoutsports@gmail.com. And if we read yours on the week 1 podcast, we will send you a free Fouled Out hat. Pretty sweet hat. Got a lot of friends who like that hat. But for now, let's grab Matt and let's talk about the AFC East. Let's go. All right, Matt is here, rolling on a Friday, ready to preview the AFC East for the upcoming NFL season. My favorite division, the home of my beloved 6-time Super Bowl champion, New England Patriots. Matt, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right. How you feeling about this season?
Bad. Bad. You know what
Yeah, I had to throw that out at you after you threw out the 6-time Super Bowl champions.
We started this exact AFC East podcast the exact same way last year, where I said the 6-time Super Bowl champions, and you're like, how many games is your team going to win this year? And I was like, not a lot. I think the fun thing about this season for the Patriots, like as a Patriot fan, is that there's no pressure to win games. I don't expect this team to win a lot of games. If they did, I would be over the moon. But really, this season is like the first year of a true blue rebuild. And it's all about getting experience for the young guys, seeing how Gerard Mayo is as a coach, like just kind of starting to figure things out and starting the rebuild. So, like I'm gonna be cool this season. I'll be chill unless Drake May is not good enough to come and play at any point in this season, and then I will start panicking as we get later in the season because that should be the goal. Is like get Drake May ready to play, have him play at some point this season, and like see what we got and start getting him some live fire reps. But besides that, man, there's no pressure on me. All the pressure is on you and the Motor City Kitties because this is your year to win a Super Bowl.
Every year is.
It's going to be very hard to disappoint me this year. It's an AFC podcast.
Yeah.
And being that my team is in the AFC, I'll be leading us off with my biggest narrative for the AFC East. And kind of going to keep talking about the Patriots here. This is a little bit of a homer pick with everything that's going on in this division this year. But my biggest narrative is the new era in New England. This is going to be the first time that Bill Belichick is not coaching this team and not the GM of this team in 24 years. Basically, my entire life watching football since I was 10 years old, Bill Belichick has been my GM and Bill Belichick has been my head coach. I was very happy with the first post Bill Belichick draft. If you go back and listen to our draft episodes, I was super happy about Drake May, Jalen Polk, Javon Baker, like a lot of these guys, but kind of meh on the offseason overall. We had a ton of cap space, used a lot of it to re-sign and extend some of our guys, but not really much to improve the roster overall. And honestly, like we're just at a point in New England where nobody really wants to play here. Like you just saw it with Brandon Ayuk. They just offered Ayuk the biggest deal of any team that was trying to trade for him, and he didn't want to play here. So this is, like I said, a true blue rebuild. It's not only an on-field rebuild, this is an off-field rebuild where you're going to have to start reestablishing culture. And the culture of this team for years has been Bill Belichick's culture. This is how we do this. It's my way or the highway. Now it's more collaborative. Everybody's happier. Things like they're more open to the media. Gerard Mayo's like really made it a point to tell people how different he is and will be from Bill Belichick. And everything is kumbaya and we're happy and everything's awesome until we start playing football games.
Yep.
Because let us not forget, in all of the turbulence that's gone on in New England the last couple of years, the goal is to win football games. The goal, Robert Kraft's goal, is to win championships. And they're not going to do that this year, obviously. Yeah. But for this year to be a success, you don't have to win a lot of games, but you got to start taking steps in the right direction to be a competent franchise again that can be over 500. So that's like I said, I'm not looking to win a bunch of games this year, but I'm looking for Drake May's development. I'm looking at where your wide receiver picks in the draft good, or are we going to have more wide receiver bust? Do the young guys take a step forward? Like, what are you doing on the offensive line? All these things. And I think everybody's really, like I said, everybody's happy right now until we go out there and get punched in the mouth by the Bengals in week 1. Yeah. And then it's going to be time to start looking in the mirror and saying like, okay, what are we doing here and what are we building?
To kind of reflect on a very recent rebuild. Well, how did the Lions get back to like where they are now? It wasn't
back to.
Hey, there was a time where they had significantly more championships than the Patriots had. Thank you very much.
That was before the NFL.
It was back
existed.
In the 50s.
Yeah.
It was the NFL. It was before the merger.
Back to, how did we get back to where we were in the 50s in 2024? Please, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Please enlighten us.
But like, it was drafting and developing. It wasn't like, oh, we have this cap space, let's go out and sign a bunch of veterans. Right? It was watching the team that was borderline unwatchable at the start of the year clearly put a better product out there as the season goes on. It's not all wins and losses, although it has to eventually be wins and losses. But like these first 2 years are probably going to be hard to stomach in that front, but you're going to know if it's working because you'll be able to see it and feel it when you watch the game.
That's exactly what I'm looking for. Like, this team's going to come out week 1 and get absolutely fucking schmeckeldorfed by the Cincinnati Bengals. No, I think Joe Burrow is going to throw for like 500 yards week 1 and cook them. So it's like, okay, that's week 1 of the rebuild. That's fine. I totally get that. He's on the warpath this season. What do we look like week 14, 15, 16, 17? Are we more competitive? Has Drake May developed? Is he starting by then? Like, those are the kind of things that are big for me this year. Not necessarily the wins and losses yet. What is your biggest narrative for the AFC East?
Can the Bills or the Dolphins make themselves relevant? Like, can they make themselves a threat in the AFC? Because they've both been sitting here kind of making this case for a while, and they don't get the job done. They don't make the moves to address the real issues in the offseason. Then they come back the next year and there's all this hype around like the same things as always. And it's like, okay, well, we've seen this before. We know how this is going to play out. So like, show me. I don't want to hear that like it's different. I want to see that it's different.
We're going to get to them in win ranges in a minute, but spoiler alert, they have the same over-under in Vegas, and I think I have the same win range for both of them as well. They're going to be our first 2 teams, so we'll talk about that in a minute.
So I don't have the same win range for them, but it's for the same reason that my win range was different for one of these teams last year, because I still don't trust that thing.
Fair. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yep.
But yeah, they're both teams that had major offseason losses this year as well, especially on defense for both teams. And then the Bills, like a lot of stuff offensively as well. So it's going to be an interesting year for both of them. And I think the question is very real. Like, okay, can you be playoff teams? And if you are, can you win playoff games? Or are you just going to disappoint again?
Yeah.
Because that just seems to be the MO. I feel bad for Josh Allen because it just seems like his problem in life is that he just keeps running into Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. Right.
And then like Joe Burrow that one year. But his record outside of having to play Patrick Mahomes is not bad. It's just that he keeps having to play Patrick Mahomes. And then the Dolphins, it's just like, okay, are you going to win when it's not 150 degrees outside? Just one game. Yeah. Just win one game when it's not. Right. Did you see all the Dolphins fans are all pissed off because they don't have like a 1 p.m. home game until like week 8 or 9 or something like that when it's already cooling off down there?
Cooling off, so it'll only be 95 degrees.
Yeah, but all the Dolphins fans are like, we specifically built this stadium to have an unfair advantage. Like, we built it to cheat, and now you're taking away our ability to cheat. The NFL is so unfair. They won't let us cheat by putting the other team in like a life-threatening situation on their sideline. Fucking NFL. Kicking the Dolphins while they're down. They just had to pay Tua Tagovailoa a ton of money, and now you're taking away their home games.
God.
Win ranges for the AFC East, starting with the Buffalo Bills. I have the Bills between 9 and 12 this year. Their over-under is 9.5. So kind of thinking that this is another one I might take. It's really difficult to know what to expect from the Bills because, like I said, they had major losses at wide receiver, offensive line, pretty much all over the defense as well. But I look at the Bills offense specifically and I'm like, okay, you still have Josh Allen. And anytime you have Josh Allen, you have a chance to be good offensively. But like also somehow, even though they traded away Stephon Diggs and lost Gabe Davis, I feel better about the Bills offense than I did with those guys. I'm like, I like this. I like that Bills attack that they kind of stumbled into at the end of last year where they're like, we're going to run with Cook, we're going to run with Allen, and
Yep.
then we'll kind of throw off play action. And like, I really like Khalil Shakir. I really liked him in the draft. I really like him for this season in like fantasy and beyond. He's on our dynasty team.
Yeah.
Like, I just, on a side note, we got like multiple guys almost for free in dynasty the last year and a half or whatever, whenever we picked up that
Yeah.
team. And I like all of them. Like Chase Brown, Khalil Shakir, Rico Dowdle, who we talked about on the last podcast. There's like a bunch of dudes I kind of like. Um, but like I don't feel worse with this team not having Stephon Diggs because Stephon Diggs is washed and a diva. And I just feel like the offense is going to be better by virtue of not having him this year.
Like I look at their roster and it's like wide receiver 4 and 5 is like MVS and Mac Collins. I think if you asked most coaching staffs and front offices, like if they would take that, they'd be like, yeah, in a heartbeat. I would say it. I think it's fair to acknowledge that like the top end talent of their wide receiving core has decreased, but like there is much more depth, and I think it also forces the offense to be run in a way where it's not I'm constantly hunting for the home run.
Yeah.
Because their main issue was if they didn't hit the home run, they weren't scoring points because they wouldn't pick up third downs.
People keep telling me exactly what you said. They're like, yeah, well, the top end talent of the wide receiver core is worse. I'm like, is it? Is it actually? Because Diggs is washed and Gabe Davis is inconsistent, and I expect Khalil Shakir and Dalton Kincaid to take steps forward this year. So I'm not convinced that they
I
actually have a
mean,
worse receiving core.
Dalton King still has a lot to show as an NFL player. So like he's still got to prove that. Like Khalil Shakir, yes, like I like what he has to offer, still has to actually show it. So
He
like
does for sure. They for sure have to show it. I mean, Dalton
yeah.
Kincaid was good last year. He had 73 catches for 673 yards, but
Yeah, but we're
good
talking
for
about potentially replacing a number one option.
they had a number one option last year because Diggs fell off the side of a fucking
Yeah.
cliff in the second half of the season. I'm not saying those guys are going to be amazing. I'm just not convinced that they're wholesale going to be a lot worse.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what was your win range for the Bills?
Same as you, 9 and 12. 9 to 12, not 9 and 12. That's a lot of games.
That's okay, Roger Goodell. Like, how many games can we play before human bodies start to explode? Second team on the list is the Miami Dolphins. I lied when I said I had the same win range. I have them one game worse from 8 to 11. Over under is the same as the Bills, though, at 9.5. I said this about Dallas. I just feel like this team is built to win regular season games and then lose when it matters. And I know people are concerned about Tua still, but he played the entire year last year and took some pretty gnarly hits. So hopefully he's past the concussion stuff. But obviously, if it comes back, it could come back in a big way and kind of bite my pick in the butt.
Yeah, I have from 6 to 12. Can appreciate that, yes, sure, Tua got through last year. Uh you might note that football was a very violent game. And getting through one season, well, yes, is an accomplishment. That does not paint you as a paragon of durability. Uh, and you know what? You don't really just get past head injuries. It doesn't heal that way. So, like, it's just one of those things where I'm like, yeah, I always have to account for the fact that this guy could go down and go down for a very long time.
I keep waiting for the Tua is going to wear the Halo cap story this year, and I keep not seeing it. And I'm like, I think if anybody in the NFL should be wearing the Halo cap this year, it's probably Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah.
Team 3 is the podcast favorite, or at least half of the podcast. The Patriots of New England, over under 4.5 this season. Matt, I have them between 12 and 17. Yet I miss the years where, like, if we were doing the podcast during the dynasty, we seriously would have been coming on here every year and just being like, yeah, 12 to 17 every single
Yeah.
year. That legitimately was the
Yeah.
range. I have between 2 and 6. So they
Okay.
have the second hardest schedule in the entire NFL this year by Vegas metrics, which I don't understand how that happens when you're the last place team last year and they're like, oh, hey, congratulations. Here's the second hardest schedule in the league. Barmore had the blood clot thing already, which I think kind of compounds a talent issue that, like, I keep hearing this narrative that the Patriots defense was a top 10 unit last year and they didn't have Judon and Gonzalez. And that's very true. But also, you had the greatest defensive coach in the history of the NFL coaching this unit. And now we're going to other guys.
Yeah.
So, and I just don't think this roster is like that talented and can afford to lose Christian Barmore for the entire season and still be a top 10 unit.
Yeah, no, he's pretty crucial to the success of that defense.
Yeah.
I have them from 4 to 8. 8 feels like a pipe dream. However, every now and then we have a quarterback under the league that just they catch lightning in a bottle. And so that's kind of what I'm accounting for there. In addition to, like, me thinking that Jalen Polk is going to step in and be a lot better than people expect. Like,
Yeah.
a lot better.
I agree with that.
You're losing Bill Belichick. There are definitely, like, some current concerns about guys being available on defense. So, like, yeah, 4 wins feels about right for the floor. Maybe 3. I can see 3 for sure, but, like, not a whole lot of teams end up winning less than 4 games most years. So, I felt okay with going with 4, but I think if you can get some solid play from the quarterback position, which is a big if, uh, and the defense plays remotely to the possibility of its talent level, it's not crazy for me to see them getting to 7 or 8 wins there.
I love Matt's take on this because he's like, listen, Drake May and Jalen Polk could come in and be CJ Stroud and Puka Nacua. And I'm just sitting here like laughing it up. I love it. But
no, that I think they might have won slightly more games than what I'm suggesting, but but no, I'm just saying, like, you're still going to be below 500, but I could see them, like, scraping their way to, like, that middle of the pack area.
Yeah, I look at like the 4 to 6 range and I look at their schedule and I'm like, just point out on the schedule the games that they're going to win because, like, I know looking at preseason schedules is like a little silly because we don't know how these teams are going to be.
Yep.
But it's like Bengals, Seahawks, Jets, 49ers, Dolphins, Texans, Jags, Jets, Titans, Bears, Rams, Dolphins. Like, it is a hard schedule.
Yeah.
And I'm not looking forward to it. But
yeah,
I will tell you,
I think 4 to 5 wins is probably where they end up.
if this team wins between 6 and 8 games this season with this schedule, I'm going to be the most obnoxious person on earth. Especially if they win 8 and like Drake May comes in and he's awesome. I'm going to be on this podcast every day. Like, we're going to drop pods every single day of me talking about the Patriots. Last team is the New York Jets. This is my biggest win range, I think, of any team in the NFL, which I feel like is kind of cheating to have like a super wide range. But I have between 7 and 13. So
We are far apart on this.
yeah, the last 2 years, each of the last 2 years, they won 7 games with basically the worst quarterback play in the entire NFL. So I see 7 as like the floor because say Rodgers is like bad or gets hurt again, they've won 7 games each of the last 2 years with like Joe Flacco and Zach Wilson. So they can probably win 7 again. And I know Rodgers is like 40 and coming off of a torn Achilles. I just don't think that a torn Achilles necessarily means what it used to for people. And they actually like have some weapons on offense this year. Like we sat here last year and we're like, okay, cool. You have Garrett Wilson, but what else do you have? Like Brees Hall's coming off a torn ACL, and you have Alan Lazard and like Corey Davis. It's really not as good as people think it is. Then they go out and get like Mike Williams. You have another full year of Brees Hall being healthy and like ready to go. So I think there's more weapons on the offense than people expect. What do you have for the Jets?
3-9. You want to hear why?
I would love to hear why.
So,
because the over under is 10.5.
I know
in Vegas. So you should be pounding that right now.
I know. Look, best case scenario, they're probably the third best team in this division. But do you agree with that assessment?
No.
Okay. So here's my thing.
No, I just said they could win 13 games. That's higher than I have the Bills or the Dolphins.
You are on one then. Aaron Rodgers hasn't been a above average quarterback in like 5 years. Let's start from that frame of reference. He has a torn Achilles. So he's coming back off of that at 40 years old. And while, yes, the recovery has become better for that, I don't think that really has a whole lot of bearing on recovering from it at 40 years old. That's compounded by the fact that he was already losing mobility. And that is also further compounded by the fact that they have had a notably poor offensive line the last few years. So I have serious concerns about their ability to actually function as an offense, like in a passing game from that standpoint. The defense is a legit flamethrower. And that is why I'm willing to say that they can get up to 9 wins. However, Aaron Rodgers is a particular brand of bullshit that only is palatable when you're winning. And if they do not get off to a decent start and he starts doing the shit that he does, that shit's going to get really toxic really quick. And I mean, like, also there's the mental effect too of like a team can only do what the Jets did last year for so long. I mean, we saw that with that Broncos defense for years, trying to carry it, and then like at a certain point, it just mentally beats you down and they can't put out those performances. Maybe I'm a little quick on the trigger of like it mentally beating down this defense. Maybe I'm a year or two early on that, but like I don't think that he is a good enough quarterback to elevate them to a 13-win team under any circumstances. And if he spills over his toxicity to the rest of the team, it'll get ugly really quick.
So I'm going to make the same point this year that I made about Rodgers and the Jets last year before he got hurt. I don't think he has to be particularly great for them to win double-digit games. They've won 7 games each of the last 2 seasons with quarterbacks who throw more interceptions than touchdowns, quarterbacks who throw more incompletions than completions, and guys who have been extremely bad for them. So I think if Rodgers can even be like a top 2/3 of the league starter and this offense can be somewhat competent, then I think that they have a good shot of winning double-digit games, especially in a division where they're going to play the Pats twice. Like they could definitely take the Pats. They should have beaten the Pats a lot over the last couple of years, but they had Zach Wilson. So
yeah,
And the rest of the
Well,
schedule is not that great either.
I think it's a little bit misleading about like how much of an upgrade he was playing prior to that compared to like not the Zach Wilson that we first saw, but like when Zach Wilson like finally got like some level of stability, like he was completing like 60% of his passes. He was about like 1-to-1 ratio, like not good, but like, he's certainly not like outright losing you games. That wasn't the way he was playing last year.
This team
Um,
was 31st
yeah,
in offense last year and
yeah,
29th in scoring.
I'm well aware of that.
And I watched Zach Wilson outright lose them multiple games to the Patriots, like in the last couple of years.
Okay,
It
well
was
the
not good.
the the stats that you were reporting was not what he did last year.
He had 7 touchdowns and 8 interceptions
Yeah,
last year.
that's like right, but you're reporting that as if it's like a significant disbalance, and that's like one off from being even.
Is it more interceptions than touchdowns?
He also did complete 60% of his passes, like I said. So it's not like he was like Nathan Petermaning out there.
Oh, he had 8 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. So I stand
Yeah,
corrected. How
yeah.
how many
Fuck
other
off.
how many other good quarterbacks throw eight
I
touchdowns and 7 interceptions?
I stated that it was not good, right? But like also the thing that we have both harped on with Aaron Rodgers is that like he plays it like pathologically safe. And well, yes, like I expect that he will go out there and throw like 25 touchdowns and like 4 interceptions, but it's like you probably cheated your team out of at least 8 touchdowns that year.
But if he can go out and throw 25 touchdowns and 4 interceptions with this run game and this defense, they're going to win double-digit games. That's exactly what they
No,
need him to
no,
do.
no, because the thing that gets lost in that is like all the times when he didn't throw the interception, but he had a dude who he could have kept the change moving to, and he just didn't fucking throw it.
But I will give you a bold prediction, which I'm sure that you'll love based on the previous conversation. Brees Hall is RB1 in fantasy this season.
Oh, I don't disagree with that.
Oh,
I think he's going to get all the checkdowns.
I'll give you my case anyway. He was RB4 last year in 0.5
Mhm.
PPR, playing in the 31st offense in yards, 29th offense in terms of points, coming off of a torn ACL. He had 8 games under 10 points last year, including a game where he put up 0.9 in half point PPR. That
Mhm.
was their second game of the season where they had just lost Aaron Rodgers to the torn Achilles the previous game. But finished the year 23 points, 37 points, 23 points, 28 points in 4 of his last 5 games.
Yeah.
Now he's healthy coming into this season, not coming off a torn ACL he has to recover from. We know the ACL is like a
Yeah.
2-year injury where it's the second season after you come back where you really look like yourself. He's going off the board 6 overall and RB3 right now. I've seen him RB3 some places, RB4 in others. And I like if I have a top 3, 4, 5 pick, I'm taking Brees Hall in fantasy this season. I think he's going to be an absolute monster. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of part of my Jets analysis too, is like I said, good defense, great running back. I don't think Aaron Rodgers has to do that much. But what is your bold prediction?
Um,
Like Brees Hall is RB
yeah.
31.
Yeah.
Whoa.
No. No. I mean, also going from RB4 to RB, what is it? Uh,
Here, I'll do this. I'll make
yeah.
it even more bold.
Yeah, make it more bold.
Brees Hall is the number 1 overall flex player in half
Okay.
point PPR.
I'll take that.
So
Yeah.
like just number 1
Yeah.
non-quarterback.
No, but that makes sense to me. I mean, like it's like he's right up there with like CMC if Gibbs plays the whole way, like all 17 games to the like he finished the year.
Yeah, they just reported that Gibbs hurt his hamstring. Like just now.
Yeah, they're super conservative.
My only thing, I think the thing with Breece Hall that I like is that so I think it's still bold, and I'll go with number 1 overall non-quarterback, but I think it's bold because CMC was that guy last year, and he had over 100 more points than Breece Hall had.
Yeah.
But I think if the offense is even middle of the pack, that Breece Hall is going to absolutely be a funnel for touches this year. There's he has less competition for touches on the Jets than Gibbs has on the Lions, than Bijan Robinson has on the Falcons, and CMC has on the 49ers. And CMC's already hurt.
Yeah.
So that's my case. And then you can say whatever with the wide receivers. I think this is the year of rejuvenation for running backs in fantasy.
Yeah. I mean, I'll piggyback off of that. James Cook gets 1,700 yards of offense and at least 12 total touchdowns this year. They have to lean on him. They have to. And quite frankly, the way he played, they're stupid not to.
They have to lean on him all year until it actually matters.
Yeah.
And that is when they won't.
And then they turn into the Ravens.
Who are you picking to win the AFC East? Oh, I'm supposed to go first. I picked the Jets.
Yeah.
I really did. I really picked the Jets.
I'm going with the Bills.
I actually already wrote down Bills for you.
Yeah.
I know how this podcast was going to end. But
I don't trust Miami enough, and I just don't believe in the Jets. So
it's fair. I hate
that is gonna eat at you at the end of the year that you believed in the Jets.
I hate that I'm
telling you this now.
We do this every year, and it's always over teams I hate. Last year, it was the Packers, where I picked the Packers to make the playoffs, and you made fun of me. And I was like, now I got to root for the Packers all year. I don't want to root for the Packers.
What did we just say about the memes?
I know. But for some reason, I believe the Jets are going to get there just to disappoint everybody. This is like Mark Sanchez all over again. Aaron Rodgers just has to be Mark Sanchez because they're set up similar to that team where Sean Green was a good running back. They had a good running game. They had a great defense. That's it. Just be Mark Sanchez, Aaron Rodgers. It'll be fine. That is it for us. As always, Fouled Out can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Overcast, anywhere you get your podcast. You can hit us up at Gmail, fouledoutsports@gmail.com. And you can find our videos on TikTok at Fouled Out Sports Podcast. It is a long name, but you can't miss it. This podcast dropped August 16th, Friday. So I hope everybody's having a great Friday. Matt and I will be back Tuesday, the 20th, with the NFC South preview, which, spoiler alert, we're going to talk about how I feel about the Falcons this year after what happened to me last year. So that'll be Tuesday, the 20th, and then Friday, the 23rd, we'll be back with the AFC South preview. Just a reminder, you got 2 episodes of Fouled Out every week until the first week of the NFL season, where Matt and I will be dropping the picks pod to fill out the rest of our playoff brackets and then give you our award winners. Also, our favorite picks for the first Thursday night game of the year, and then 1 pick for the weekend. It's going to be something that we're doing every week this year, since the podcast will probably come out on Thursdays, is giving you 1 pick for Thursday night football and then 1 pick for the weekend for the fans out there gambling. But for now, my friend, good preview. I will see you soon.
Yep. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Robin.